What's up, man?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, doing good, doing good. How are you?
Fine yourself?
Good. So, before you answer the question, do you know what this is?
Yeah.
Yeah? What do we use these for?
To level just a level.
Like, right? So if I were to ask you for your definition of level, what would that be?
I'm not really a smart person, but I actually don't know, to be honest.
Will horizontal be a good word? Like no deviation from elevation, basically?
Yeah.
Not on the same level, basically, right?
Yeah.
Right? So, based on that, since we know what level means, which one of these two is correct, A or B? It's not a trick question. It's a very easy question.
I'm gonna go with probably like A.
A, right? That's the obvious answer, right? Because
Yeah.
that's a horizontal line. This is not.
Yeah.
Right? This one curves, right? So in other words, this is always going to be considered horizontal. In other words, this one can never be considered horizontal. So it's always going to be A, right? Right.
Say like you want to say like a little drop of water, like you want to put your finger, then you're gonna put. Like,
Yeah. So basically, like for example, this lake, the surface of that water is always going to be level. Basically, that's the number one tool for measuring level. You know, spirit level, right?
Yeah.
So will it surprise you to know that even though we all know that this is the obvious answer, right? This is elementary physics, right? Over 95% of the population, maybe even including yourself, actually believe it's B, even though we know it's A. You want to know why?
How come?
Do you believe the Earth is a ball? Like this?
Honestly, bro, a lot of people say it's flat. A lot of people say it's round.
So basically, the Earth has a circumference. So that's what NASA tells us, right? So it's 24,901 miles. So based on that circumference, the Earth should be curving at 8 inches per mile square. So basically, that will represent half a mile. So by 3 miles, it should be a 6-foot dip. Basically, does that make sense? Like a 6-foot curve, right?
Yeah,
so if we start at 5 feet, in 3 miles, if we were to build a perfectly level structure, like a ruler, basically like a giant ruler across a lake over 3 miles, the water should deviate from the start to finish by 6 feet in 3 miles. And actually, it gets worse. It gets more exponential. If you want to take a quick look at that, that's the exact numbers for the curve calculator. For the numbers that NASA tells us. And these numbers have to be correct because NASA supposedly go to space, right? They have a space, the ISS, right? So they have to know the radius of orbit. So in order to do that, they need to know the size of the Earth, supposedly, right?
Oh,
so they have to give us numbers. But when we put these numbers to the test, we all know that water doesn't hold a form. Water collapses and always forms a level surface. So that's the number one proof that will prove that the Earth is a level plane. So basically, flat Earth is a term that was propped up to be mocked because obviously this information blew up on the internet in 2015, but I didn't come across it till 2016. And to be honest, I wouldn't be out here sharing this information if it wasn't being censored. So the way it's being censored is they're not removing the videos from the internet because that would be too obvious. So they're just demoting them. So what they're doing is they're propping up like big science channels with millions of subscribers and basically just ridiculing it. So that's like the number one proof for the globe is just ridicule. So I don't know if you know, but like the number one proof that globe actually uses is gravity, right? They use that to explain why water bends, right? But basically it's a false argument because even if there was gravity, there should still be measurable curvature, basically. So people like to use that as a means to prove curvature. But gravity, I don't know if you knew, but it's just a theory. And the reason why it's just a theory is because they didn't measure a force. All they measured was the rate in which things drop. So when you let something go, they measured how fast that dropped. So like 9.8 meters per second. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah. So it's a measurement of speed, which is the effect of a force, not the cause, basically. So they didn't measure the cause. So I don't know if you've ever seen amateur footage of 20 miles up without a GoPro lens. That's 4 times higher than airplanes fly, basically. And it's a flat horizon without a GoPro. Because if they use a GoPro, look, I have an example
the GoPro, they'll look more...
Check that out. GoPro obviously curves horizon. So
I get you.
basically every action camera kind of has this effect of like the bubble effect, basically, and when you turn the camera up and down, it actually concaves and convex, so it changes. You could see it, it's pretty obvious, but...
So basically you're saying that GoPros basically... Yeah,
GoPros were kind of designed to do that, but I mean, they're kind of for the wide angle view, basically, but they do that effect, though. So, I mean, they always use those when they fly in airplanes. So when people see videos of these airplanes flying, they think they're seeing the curvature, but it's just...
Actually, the GoPro.
Exactly. So, yeah, have you heard about this subject, like, before? Like,
honestly, no, this is my first time actually learning about this, dude.
Really?
Yeah.
But have you heard of flat Earth before, though? Like
I heard of flat Earth.
How long ago would you say?
I learned about it like
Yeah, okay. So basically, another proof that people like to use is like the stars, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so basically, it's kind of funny because the stars, people like to assume what the stars are, right? And people like to say like, oh, well, look at the sun and the moon and the stars are all circles. So we're gonna assume that Earth is a circle. So basically, they're making an assumption on top of an assumption. So the logical thing would be, let's prove what the Earth is and then make assumptions about the sky. You know, that would be the logical thing to do, but people like to reverse it, make assumptions about the sky and then assume that Earth must be a circle too because the sun's a circle. But the sky and the lights in the sky are completely different than what the Earth is, you know? So it's basically kind of it's a red herring in a way when you want to prove what what red herring means is a false argument. It's kind of like gravity. So again, how do we measure the Earth for curvature? We physically go and measure it, the ground basically, water in specific, because water is the #1 substance on Earth basically, right? And it's perfectly level as we can all see and test, you know, every day in construction. I don't know if you knew, when they build bridges, you know, engineering and everything, basically they use Euclidean plane principles.
Oh, yeah.
So geometry basically is based off of that. We measure angles and everything from a baseline that's a horizontal line. If we were to measure from a curve, angles wouldn't really match up. In other words, we wouldn't be able to build long distances, you know. So engineers know, but they believe, you know, the globe because we were all taught the globe, you know. So, you know, I have some information right here because, you know, this information, like I said, is being censored, is being ridiculed. So I have some websites on there that you could check out.
Oh, cool.
You know, and I have some basic proofs right there that disprove the globe, like the main ones, you know.
I think this actually kind of caught my attention, to be honest.
I came across this information 6 years ago, and I'm telling you, it completely changed my life, like completely, like my perspective about basically about how we're living life today. You know, it's, put it this way, we're just, put it in simple terms, we're being fucked by the government. And this is one way they're doing it. You know how the government lies, you know, there's lies left and right, you know, the red versus blue, all that's just, you know, a distraction. Believe it or not, even the lockdown that just happened, you know, it was literally a distraction from this because this was blowing up, like,
that's what I heard, like
literally blowing up. So they're trying to keep people from the simplicity of understanding, you know, literally basic physics. You know, physics doesn't change. Steel doesn't become stronger than wood just because we change the scale, you know what I'm saying? Just like water is always gonna need a container and the surface is always gonna be level regardless of scale. That's physics, that's fact, you know? So we have this belief just because we were told that, you know, at 5 years old when we go to school and we never question it again, you know?
True, yeah.
So, you know, just look into it, man, and trust me, you know, it'll change your life if you really look into it, you know? And just try to be honest as possible. If you don't know something, just admit to yourself you don't know something. That's my best advice. And, you know, we don't know everything, you know, but we do know what we can experience, you know, and nobody could tell us otherwise.
Gotcha.
And they have to prove it to us if they make claims, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, I get you.
You know, but man, thanks for stopping, man.
Anytime,
You have a good one.
Thank you.
All right, man. There you go.